Are we recording? Yes. Okay. So thanks everyone for hanging out with us today. And if I forget to say it, please jump in at any time. We don't stand on protocol here with the blueprint process. We love seemingly random tangents. We love interruptions because we love how you are one of a kind, and one of a kindness often does not do well with protocols. So there's no protocol here. We would love to have you share. Officially, myself, Brandon, and Seth will be presenting today, but that doesn't mean that much. We'd love to hear from you as well. So let's just start by telling you that this Purpose Pursuer webinar happens every fourth Wednesday of every month at noon Pacific. And it is exactly how it's titled. It is for people who are pursuing their purpose. And we are here as Blueprint Process practitioners to help you in any way that we can. Yes, of course, you can reach out to us afterwards, but the point of the webinar is actually to help you and not to market. We're not trying to market anything. We're just trying to help anybody who is interested in pursuing their purpose. All of us as Blueprint Process practitioners are currently in the pursuit of our own purpose, and the Blueprint Process is a program that is designed to help you identify your own purpose with the help of one of these practitioners. So we welcome you to this. We're excited to have you because we love people who are in pursuit of purpose, who have this intuitive sense that there's something more for them to be doing, and they are willing to answer that call, even though they may not have clarity, which is exactly what Brandon's going to be talking about today. So we're going to jump in. I'm going to start with my presentation, but again, there's no protocol. Please interrupt at any time. Raise your hand, do the chat thing. Go ahead and just verbally interrupt. I don't care. Neither does Brandon or Seth. We would love to hear from you. Brandon, Seth, have I forgotten anything before I get started?
I would just like to welcome anybody here who isn't normally here as a guest today. I see Brian and Henry, you're here frequently, but I see Brian, Janine. I don't know if I got that right, but just want to welcome you and also offer that if you see an opportunity to jump in, that you're more than welcome to do that too.
Thank you, Brandon. I so appreciate that. And Seth, do you have anything that you'd like to add to the peeps?
No, I just second the welcome to everyone and look forward to the conversation and seeing how these topics are woven together today. So super excited to jump in.
Yeah. Hi, Frank. Yeah, what you got?
I'm just all intrigued here. Who's Albert?
Albert, I believe, and it's his note taker. So I don't know that we have him personally.
Okay.
Albert's note taker Albert came to one of these webinars a couple months ago.
Okay.
So he's probably not able to join us, but wants to take notes.
I just couldn't go on without asking that question.
I appreciate that. I love that. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. And my topic today in particular is letting go of the plan. And we as practitioners, we certainly understand the desire to plan the heck out of life. And my particular topic is with purpose, that is difficult to do. It is cumbersome and it just doesn't work. I've been studying my own purpose since 2006, and I've been studying other people's purpose, and I've never seen a plan come to fruition. Never, ever, ever. Why? Because purpose, as Blueprint Process Principle number 1 suggests, purpose is a divine event. It's not a you event. It feels like you. It looks like you. This little framework around my head makes it look as if I am talking right now. But what we understand is that each of us are actually God, or whatever you'd like to refer to the higher power as, the creator. That entity is representing himself in all of us. And how he represents himself in each one of us is, of course, unique. And it is divine. so much better than if we were just a human. For example, I don't know about you, but in my history, there are a whole series of failures. Yes, there's some victories too. Failures, mistakes, bad moves on my part, bad thinking on my part. If I tried to come up with a plan that counteracted that or used that or tried to improve that or progress that, it could work in some areas and then massively fail in other areas because it would be a human plan. What we know is that God, as he's moving through each and every one of us, has his own plan. So for us to plan is like stepping on God's toes. Not super smart, in my opinion. I've done that multiple times. I still do that. Even though I know better, I still come up with my own plans. So what I've learned over time is that my plans pale in comparison. Not are they not nearly as good as God's plans, but I have no clue what is possible with my blueprint. I have no idea. And looking back on my life, oh my gosh, I am so glad that my plans did not come to fruition. So glad. I wouldn't live the life I'm living today. So the goal then is, if we're not to be planning, what do we do? And you've probably heard this represented on quotes across the walls of America and the world. And that would be that you should get out of your own way. Something to the effect of, you want to get out of your own way. But in reality, in the way that I see that quote, we need to get out of God's way. Because if we let him have his way in our life, which he's gonna do anyway, so we might as well, it will be stellar. It will be stellar as he is. So I'm going to describe for you something that all the practitioners know super, super well. And that's an analogy that I'm going to use to help explain this concept, which is, what is our responsibility then? If we're not supposed to be setting goals, setting benchmarks, identifying action items and working towards those, if that's not what we're supposed to be doing, what exactly are we supposed to be doing? I get this question all the time. Okay, if God is doing the work, do I just sit back, put my feet up, eat some bonbons, watch some soap operas or whatever? Do I just let him do the work and I check out? And of course, that's not the case, but it feels that way. Okay, if I'm not planning and God's planning and I'm not doing the work, God's doing the work, then what exactly am I supposed to be doing? And Jesus, I'm sorry, I don't remember where in the Bible he says this, but he talks about watching. He said, what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch. And that's what we get to be doing. So I'll explain, but I promise you, watching God is not like putting your feet up and watching a string of Netflix series or movies. Watching is the most difficult thing I have ever done. And oh my gosh, I have so much room to progress in this area. Watching is a very humble sport, a very humble sport. Okay, so imagine a house. It doesn't matter, and you can draw this if you'd like to. Imagine a house with a skylight, doors and windows, and you're in the house. And actually, in the analogy, I say that you are the house. Imagine that God is the sun in the sky, and that sun is pouring through that skylight in your house. He's pouring through the skylight in your house 24/7, 365. He is always, just like the actual sun, he is always juicing you with goodness. Always. Creativity, ideas, energy, inspiration, steadfastness, persistence, grace, patience, you name it. He's giving you everything that you need. And when it comes to your blueprint, your one-of-a-kind representation of him, he is feeding you all those things. So time out for a second. You can see in the behind Brandon, you can see what a blueprint looks like. It has around 100 items on it. And those 100, thank you, Brandon, those 100 items are the way that you represent God. He's feeding those puppies to you all the time. They are made up of skills, purpose elements, values, and passions. Sometimes you might find yourself doing something and be kind of surprised at your ability. Well, hello, that's God moving in you. It's not you. And you can tell it's not you, right? It didn't come with training. You have no background in it, whatever. It's just genius coming out of your mouth or your hands or whatever. Well, that's God moving in you. Each of us has the same amount in his or her blueprint, but it's a one-of-a-kind design. Very, very important to remember. So when he's moving through your house, that light is coming through the skylight, filling up your house with peace, love, hope, fruition, all the things. And then it goes bursting out your doors and windows, and it impacts the light from God impacts the people outside your doors and windows. Right now, once again, it looks as if I am doing the work. I'm not. If I were, I wouldn't be nearly so eloquent. Guaranteed. God is doing the work through me, and he's doing the work through you too, whether you know it or not. So what is my job then? What is each of our jobs? Well, Blueprint Process practitioners would suggest that you get to know the God that is within you. That's your blueprint. It's super helpful to have that thing on the wall behind Brandon's head. So you can go remind yourself in times of indecision, in times of frustration, loss, you just got off the heels of a failure, a mistake. When you're feeling about this small and that the things against you are this big, it's a really good time to go to your blueprint and remind yourself of who you are and how you are a one-of-a-kind representative of God. It helps you make decisions, brings the clarity that Brandon's going to be talking about. It's super helpful to have that as a tool. So as I mentioned it earlier, our job is really to watch. What are we watching? We're watching God. Imagine that you're standing in the living room of that house. And sometimes we get caught up in thinking that we're the ones that are doing the work. We're the ones that are parenting. We're the ones that are building the business. We're the ones that are running a marathon, whatever. When we think that way, we are literally standing in the way of God, kind of. It's like we're standing in front of the windows. We're blocking that light effectively. So what we want to do instead of watching ourselves, patting ourselves on the back, or feeling super shame, less than, lost, a failure, we don't want to be feeling those things, because then that means that we think it's us that's doing the work or failing or succeeding. Instead, we want to get our back up against the wall in that living room, and we want to watch the glory that is God come through our house and out the doors and windows. Now, that in and of itself is so powerful. When it's humble, yeah, it's humble, but it's super powerful when you recognize that you're not the one that's doing the work, right? Because as humans, like I mentioned earlier, we can swing from failure to success in 2.3 seconds. Good decisions, bad decisions, right decisions, wrong decisions, good things coming out of our mouth, bad things, you name it. But when in humility, we step back and recognize, just like Jesus said, I'm not the one that's doing the work, God's doing the work. Then we watch God, and I'm sure you can imagine, you will be in awe of what he's doing in you. And by extension, you'll start to watch for him in other people too. And instead of being frustrated with the people around you or intimidated by them, you'll recognize that, nope, actually God's just working their blueprint. And you'll start to just naturally give all the glory to him, which is amazing. Then you become transparent to God. So people will start to see you in a very different light. New opportunities will come your way, new relationships, your life will start to click, because your life is actually custom designed to fit that blueprint, whether you know it or not. So by stepping back and letting God do the work, all those tumblers click into place and the door opens and you've got your life starts to become just this easy life, not like kicking your feet up, but free flowing. That might be a better way to say it. Natural, effortless, where yeah, you're doing work, but it doesn't feel that way. You feel confident, you're clear, you have direction, it's amazing what happens when you let him do the work. All right. So, what is your job then? I mentioned your job is to watch. As you watch God, you will not only get to know who he is in you, you'll get to understand your blueprint more and more, but you'll also start to understand him. And that's the kingpin to success, is understanding the dude that made it all. That's the government of all. When you understand him, everything else is going to make sense. You'll know what to do. So yes, the doing mentioned, remember I said, yeah, we don't sit back and put our feet up and eat bonbons all day when God does the work. It's actually harder than anything to just watch, because part of the watching means waiting. That's difficult. But when you wait for him to move within you, to say something or to do something, your life actually takes on more of a balance. There's now more time because you're not doing, running, trying to make your life a success. You're trusting that in God, it's already a success. And you have just yet to realize it. But I guarantee you, you will when you watch him. You'll see his genius design for you, and by extension, your life. You'll start to trust. You'll start to sit back and relax and trust and let him move through you in very inspired, efficient, and effective ways. So when it comes to planning, yeah, stop. Don't. So you can set that mantle down and just watch and learn and get to understand the dude that made all things. All right. Any questions, comments, rude remarks? No?
Yeah, well,
Wow.
the thing I was talking about is because that weighs on me from time to time, the sitting back and eating bonbons or letting go and letting God, type idea there. And then I was writing down here, it's like the idea of taking note, because that's of us that are in business. I'll speak about me. I love to take credit for a plan well laid. Look at the fruition of the plan.
Yeah.
Look how smart I was, or the system I had. And it's kind of like, oh, wait a minute. But when that doesn't happen, then that's when upset and disaster and, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? And all that kind of stuff. And it's like, but if God has his perfect way and his way is complete, then how can I take credit? And so the thing I put in brackets after that, and I'll end with this, was this humility. I mean, I thought I knew what humility meant. It's like, no, I'm actually pretty good. I'm pretty hot. I'm in a bag of chips, but I'm not going to say anything. That's what I used to think. But now humility is like, make way. It's like giving way, leeway, whatever you want to call it, to God's perfect plan and glory. And it's like, it takes this weight off of me. There's still questions, but that's just what I wanted to say.
I love that. And you saying there's still questions, that's the humility. And it's getting to what Brandon, I think, is going to talk about. There's just, yeah, when we let God do the work, and we have no idea. We have no idea where it's going to go. And that's okay. That's humility and that's trust. Yeah, go ahead.
One other thing is like the word used, letting God. It's like God has his way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't even need to let him do anything. It's kind of like, and it's actually changed the way that I meditate and the way that I pray.
Mm,
Like actually, I'm not praying in order to beseech God.
mhm,
It's like God is already at work.
mhm.
Like it's for me to kind of like, that's why it's like I can see them as miracles, but in reality, it's like, are there any really miracles with God in God's economy? No, it's just who He is.
Yeah,
He does, and it's like, wow, I can hope to see that. Want to see.
that's right. That's right. Lovely. Anybody else? All right, Brandon, are you up for going second?
Sure.
Excellent. We're ready.
Um, you've mentioned it a couple times. Clarity is been weighing on my mind and has been resonating with me a lot lately. Anyone who has looked at my LinkedIn content would know that. I think I got a couple content comments last week that were basically like, "Okay, yeah, clarity, we get it, we get it." Um, to which I said, "You can never really over communicate those important, really important concepts." Um,
Absolutely.
that I am clear about. Um, so what clarity is it is kind of a buzzword. And sometimes I do think on social media, we get in these echo chambers. And so the chances are there that I did see that word popping up time and time again. And one of my friends, he actually confirmed for me, like, it's kind of a buzzword. And so when I was thinking about it, I was thinking, yeah, it's like anything else. Like, you have to learn to define these terms for yourself. When you see clarity, it's like clarity of what? Clarity of what am I going to eat for breakfast today? Clarity of what's my workout at the gym going to be like today? Clarity of why I'm even working out. What's the point? And so clarity by itself, I think, can get attached to a whole bunch of different stuff. What I think is relevant, extremely relevant to today, is clarity of, well, I want to tie in what Tammi said, the skylight metaphor, clarity of blueprint, clarity of purpose, clarity of why you believe you're on the planet, what you're uniquely here to do. That while it may seem like everybody has the same type of abilities and passions and values and purpose, they don't. You are unique, and you are uniquely here for something, right? That purpose. And what flows from that, like, so what? Like, what's the point of me having that kind of clarity of purpose, clarity of blueprint? And something interesting to me is, in the context of the conversation I was having with somebody, we're talking a little bit about discipline and how that's something else that you'll hear people talk about. You just need to be disciplined. If you're just disciplined enough and you stick with it, no matter if it's hard or it seems like you're failing, and right, super challenging stuff. But if you just have the discipline to keep pushing through, then you'll achieve what you want to achieve. And I don't think that that's terribly helpful to just tell people to be disciplined. What it comes back to is that clarity of purpose, clarity of blueprint. If you understand the deeper purpose of why you're on the planet, and let's make it even more tactical, right? If you understand why it is you're waking up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym, and you understand that deeper purpose, you are much more likely to be disciplined about it and stick with it on week 3 when you just don't want to get up at 5 a.m. But you understand a deeper purpose. That allows you to then be disciplined, and it allows you to keep going for the things that matter when motivation fades, because motivation does fade. And without the deeper purpose, you will stop doing it. Okay. It's why people trying to lose weight, they understand, I eat less calories, I work than I expend, I work out, and I'm going to lose weight. But they don't do it because there's not a connection there to a deeper why, a deeper purpose for what they're doing. What else comes from clarity of purpose and blueprint And it ties into being able to let go. Like you said, Tammi, right? Being able to let go of having to have the perfect plan, the perfect solution in place. I know I need to do these 10 things. And when I do, that's it. That's going to be the key right there. When you have clarity of your purpose, what you're uniquely here to do, you have a confidence about you. You're able to show up in a natural way in any type of environment, to include uncertain environments, environments where there is no plan and the potential for you to come up right out of the gate with the 10-step plan to actually solve it that's unlikely. However, if you understand your purpose and your blueprint, you understand all that you bring, right? That you're bringing to the table, right? You are able to show up in a natural, confident way, an easy way. And I think you talked about the tumblers of the lock all falling in place. It's not because they're not falling in place because all of a sudden everything you have the perfect plan. They're falling in place because you are able to watch, like you said, watch and listen and naturally lean into your blueprint. And so your path isn't a straight line. Those tumblers are falling in place as you're moving about in your natural, confident way. So the clarity of purpose, it gives you that confidence and really empowers you to carve your own path, to not have to wait for somebody else to tell you what you're supposed to be doing.
Mm.
To be able to look around and see 88%, I made that stat up, 88% of other people doing these same things and telling you how you're supposed to market and telling you how you're supposed to talk to your team and telling you how you're supposed to wake up and the 10 things you're supposed to do in the morning, supposed to do. You're able, with that confidence and that empowerment, to make your own decision, to lean in, because you have that clarity to lean into that uniqueness, that unique purpose, that unique blueprint, and carve the path that you are uniquely meant to carve. And I think that gets at the really big so what? This idea that you don't have to do the same things as everybody else. In fact, you're not really on the planet to do the exact same things as everybody else. You're here for a unique reason.
Lovely. I love the lean in. You know, in an uncertain situation, people are going to want to say, well, just give me some action items. Give me some things I should do, because other people have been successful doing those same things, whether they're in the gym or the workplace or whatever. So what do? I lean in. What do I lean into? My blueprint, which again is why it's so important to know what it is. Thank you so much for sharing that. Love that phrase, lean in. Any other questions or comments after Brandon's presentation?
Brandon, I'm interested. You talked about surrender. So can you give some examples of breakthroughs you've seen with your community to bring them to a point of, yeah, I'm surrendering. Here you go. How do you bring them from that reaction to the deep meaning that I know you were probably thinking of when you describe surrender?
Well, I've interacted with people who've come at it from both ways. One, from actually doing the work, revealing purpose, blueprint, reflecting on those things, and then coming to the realization, right, having that confidence and that ability to say, okay, I can let go of this specific outcome. I can surrender to not having to have the perfect plan. I've also run across people who have come to that kind of on their own or through different methods, maybe not reflecting on blueprint so much as just maybe in their life experience, they've just come across it so many times that no matter what kind of plan they've had or what kind of outcome they were seeking, there's always an external vote. There's always something else that comes in that gets a vote and that kind of takes you off that track, and the outcome doesn't end up exactly how you thought, even if the outcome's still good. And I think so those people, like, they've experienced it, and they've been around long enough and in enough situations where they just recognize that while I have a lot of influence over this, I'm going to stop tying so much worth and fulfillment out of this specific outcome, because I just have seen how many of these outcomes I actually don't control. And so it's a recognition of the lack of control they have anyway. The fact that, there's always something that could come in that you're not planning for. There's always something that there's circumstances that you don't control. And so knowing that going into it and you start to plan, it's like, okay, I'm going to be informed. I'm not just going to, like Tammi said, kick my feet up and do nothing. Right. But I'm going to listen. I'm going to watch. I'm going to recognize the environment. I'm going to start to maybe do some things that I'm noticing and moving in that direction. But at the same time, let go of this idea that I actually control the final outcome. So those are the two ways I see people that I personally have seen people come at it. The kind that just through experience, they just kind of naturally get there. And then there's the reflecting and uncovering purpose and maybe a little bit more intentional way about it. And then with that confidence, they feel empowered to do that. I don't know if that answers your questions. It's not super specific, but it's kind of what I'm noticing with my community.
No, that tied together is perfect. And Tammi, how about it? The noxious bag.
Mm.
So I would tell Tammi, yes, Tammi, I surrendered to that. And she would be like, well, what's the noxious bag still sitting on the desk for then? So it was this, I like the idea of surrender. I can mentally go through the thought process of surrendering. But then, this is where I'm super excited about the way these topics are tying together. It's the people that are in community that are going to know you well enough to be able to really understand and challenge you in a way to really test you and be part of that conversation to help you completely surrender and do it wholeheartedly, not academically. And oh, by the way, the bag is still there just as an emergency backup plan. Very fundamental difference in application.
Totally agree. Do you mind sharing, before you go into your talk, do you mind sharing how would you describe the noxious bag to someone who has no idea what you're talking about? They might think they do, but can you describe it for us?
Yeah, I think so for people that know me, I say I think and I feel a lot. So in the I think space, the funny example that started it is it had to be like kindergarten or first grade or something. And the teacher was like, skip. And I had no idea what skipping was. Like in the neighborhood, that wasn't a thing for us. Like it wasn't demonstrated back in 1970. So completely failed the thing. Well, as a very thinking kid and deep feeling and all that, I took that inability to skip and put that into a little noxious, or what became a noxious bag over time. And something so innocuous turned into a behavior for me that everything in my life that didn't go as planned or didn't work or whatever would go in this bag as almost its own comfort, I guess, or almost an account of things in my life that didn't work. And I got very good at that. It was just failure. There wasn't a healthy process for me to take a failure, insert learning, come into a better place and all that stuff. That part wasn't developed in a healthy way for me. So I ended up with this noxious bag that Tammi and you and I were having a random conversation, and she just asked what this thing was sitting on the desk. And I just out of nowhere said, well, that's my noxious bag. The problem with that is by then, at 59 years old, or 57, I think, when we started Tammi. You could imagine it was oozy. There was junk, leaking out of the bottom. Like, it was just nasty at that point. But it led to me being somewhat facetious and try to just be witty into some deep discovery. Because I think each of us, in a way, have a noxious bag. And it interferes with relationships, it interferes with the quality of leadership, interferes with just your own engagement with the world and with others. So it was a huge learning point for us. I tested the idea out a few times in some leadership retreats with some very hard-nosed business people. And you can tell because people will stop making eye contact with you, or they'll lean back in their chair like, uh-oh, someone just noticed I have a noxious bag. So I challenge you to take a look at that and see what the noxious bag looks for you. And if you tell me you don't have one, I'm going to look at you sternly and be a break. I think it's, we called it the mom look, I think, but that's kind of the whole quick introduction of it, I think.
No, it's good. I'm so glad you brought up the dripping component, because I know with mine, that's exactly what happens. It starts to drip and ooze and leave stains everywhere. And like you said, it infects everything, your relationships, your work, everything. So, and this may be getting into your topic, so feel free to just run right into it. But I'm curious, kind of two questions, and you've mentioned this to me by way of asking if there's a blueprint aftercare program. But with your noxious bag, or anybody's noxious bag, how do we then deal with it? Like, and to Brandon's question, why do we want to deal with it?
All right, here we go. So first of all, just from life experience, I'm going to say ignoring it is a really bad idea. The reason it became oozy and drippy and all of that stuff is it was the issues in that bag were never dealt with. Just like some food left on the counter, within the 3-hour rule, you could probably still consume it and not get too sick. But multiple years later, that thing becomes something unidentifiable and certainly something you wouldn't want to eat. So ignoring it's a really bad idea. It's not going to go well, and it's going to, in a lot of ways, come out sideways. You're going to get asked a question about something and completely go spinning off in some emotional tirade that you didn't even know was there. And it just really almost infects your emotional bus in a way. So in a way, it creates suffering that's in many ways unnecessary. So, and this brings us into radical acceptance. Also, if you're a high thinker type person, I probably cycled through that noxious bag 3 billion times. Like, the story of the skipping is kind of goofy, but I can tell you where we were. I can tell you who the teacher was. I can tell you what clothes she was wearing. I can tell you what the experience was like when I couldn't do what was called out, and shame was a heavy thing for me. So I can go through this whole landscape in my mind of what that experience was like. So you can imagine the weight of all that goofy stuff over time and what it's like trying to carry that. So I want to step into this a little bit more because Brian is here today, and I love my Brian story, because Brian and I both were in the Navy together a few years
Hi,
ago.
Brian.
Hey, it's good to be here. I don't know why my camera's not working, but I appreciate it. Thanks.
We'll just imagine what you look like.
All right, that's fine. Yeah, let's say that's Seth.
Very handsome man. So Brian and I came together about 2 years ago during probably even longer than that by now, Brian and I came together during a transition I was having. We discovered that we were both here in Columbus and had a chance to meet up. And for years, Brian and I have been participating in and debating that men in general don't have community around them. They very much within their families are trying to do their day-to-day type thing. They're delivering all the things that are expected of them. They're raising their families. They're doing all these types of things. But when we started talking about, hey, like, who are people close to you? We had different examples of family relationships that we considered. We talked about people that were in the Navy with us, whether we were connected with them, and how we stayed connected after we retired and what that looked like. But at the end of the day, we really discovered that we had a very short list of people that, no kidding, knew us. So Brian and I sat down, and this was, again, just being goofy, but ended up being, wow, far harder than it needed to be. Brian and I sat down and said, look, I'm going to be your friend. Regardless of what you share with me or I share with you, you're on contract. Like, you're not going anywhere. You're my friend. And what that's going to look like is at least once a month. We really set a stretch goal there. At least once a month, we're going to get together, physically get together in the same room. And I'm going to ask you how you're doing, and you're going to ask me how I'm doing. And the application of that was craziness. Like, the first 3 times, piece of cake. And then it started getting flaky and, oh, I'm not going to make it this month or whatever. And then we had a chance to come together again. We laughed about it. And now, Brian, I see you probably, well, at least the second and fourth Tuesdays, we're in a men's group together. So we see each other. But the amount of time that we've spent to get to a place where I know that I have a member of my community that I can sit with and talk about the hardest possible things that I'm going through. And it's going to be a non-judgmental space. I'm going to be radically accepted for who I am. And he is going to listen, and magnificently, through all of this work, is able to say, can I give you some input there? Can I give you feedback? He knows, and from all this work, he knows how to ask permission to come into sacred space. When that permission is given and there's trust, it's unbelievable. And really the first time in my life that I've experienced that. So to have close friends like that, and looking at the number of years that we've invested in this work to get to this place, it's not very common. And I think that's what, we continually discover, and where most of our work is focused today, is how do you shine your light in a way to attract your community so that with your community, you can develop radical acceptance. So in this space, we're talking about kind of how we define it today. We talked about transmitting light, and we talked about how that's going to attract a broader community. So the broader community example for me is definitely my Blueprint community that's with us here today. And even in this space, you guys have been with me for years. You take my flea-brained ideas and you add value to those and bring them to places I never could have imagined. So that's where my topic started. And then God got involved. So the next part that I want to talk about that really was the late minute addition is, do you radically accept yourself? Are you willing to love yourself in a way that your internal language reflects value? Or is your internal language going to be the noxious bag? That radical acceptance of self is the absolute, there's hard things that you can do, I know that, but the radical acceptance of self in that internal voice is probably the hardest thing. That, like, this is 4 days of ruminating on this, trying to even imagine mapping out a clear process for how you would move through this.
Mm.
Are you able to accept, just a few ideas underneath it? Are you willing, we talked about the inside voice, and is that going to reflect love and respect and acceptance of self? Number 2 I had on the list was, are you willing to accept reality as it is? Tammi and I talk about my adoption story a lot of times, and we go through this story sometimes, and there's probably some elements that have been added over time that have turned a story into something far bigger than it probably is. So that skill of being able to look at reality, throw out the chaff, hold on to the things that are, no kidding, worth responding to, brings you to a place of acceptance of your current self and the experience that you're having. In doing this, it does a few things. It reduces the time that you're potentially, it doesn't always play out in terms of suffering, but when it does, we know it. Like, that suffering space, because it's hard to find words. It's hard to connect emotion to the experience. It's a very technical term. It's an ick feeling. You're going to try to use words to a big emotion, and it's not going to fit right, and you're going to feel that internal tension. And it's going to feel like suffering a lot of times. You're going to be up at 3 a.m. You're not going to be eating right. Your sleep's going to be interrupted, all those physical outcomes. So the faster you can get to that reality as it is, the faster you can, when it makes sense, reach out to your community that we talked about earlier. Hopefully the less time that you'll spend in that suffering place. What it also does as we move through this is, I know that I've created, by knowing my blueprint and by having my community, I have a much better resilience to things that we know are going to happen and go wrong in the world. My resilience to that, the way I react to it, the time that I spend in a place suffering, ruminating, doing all those things, has gotten a lot shorter. Then, to Tammi's point, the more I've surrendered, the more I'm willing to watch and only go when God says, okay, it's time for that step. That's still a very active piece. It's not passive by any means, although it really sounds like that for the first few times. And then you find out that you're doing so much more than you did previously, being, quote, busy.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it really gets proven to you what Tammi meant by the active watching. And then the overarching part of this that we talked a lot about today is the faith piece. Radical acceptance with people in your horizontal is fantastic, but the acceptance that you feel in this vertical relationship transcends all of this and gives a power in its experience that I think allows the day-to-day energy to keep going. It's the seeing the value in other people and being able to do what I talked about. Brian does this in the fantastic way. He's able to meet people in these places. He's able to show up with a presence that people know he's a non-judgmental, willing to listen, willing to stay in the space, willing to shoulder the discomfort in a way that doesn't submerge both people, but lets you know that there's a mirror in front of you that's going to remind you who the heck you are, and is going to give you that extra breath that's going to allow you to move forward. So all of these things working together, the radical acceptance within your community, the radical acceptance of yourself, and the radical acceptance that you feel by God, really rounds out this topic in a way that, again, completely blows me away based on what the initial experience was like, and where all of these stories that we shared today have brought it. So easy day. I hope that was helpful to y'all.
Easy. The fact that you saw the extension of the idea. First of all, the idea came to you for radical acceptance. You and I talked about it on Monday. You had a sense about what it was. And then before we hit the record button today, you said that it went from here to here. And that proves to me that you're watching. You're doing exactly what we were talking about today. You were watching. And that clarity came to you. Sorry, Brandon, I used it again. The other thing that I could not help, first of all, oh my gosh, the bravery to radically accept and love self. Whew, that's genius, dude. And I know it comes from God. So the Jesus quote that came to me regarding this was, love God and then love yourself as your neighbor. So it's interesting because we usually get the first one right. Yeah, we're supposed to love God first. But then we think we're supposed to love others next. But in reality, first of all, it all happens because we love God. But no, we're supposed to love God and then love ourselves. And then we're able to love others. And that's just, it goes right along with this idea that each of us, are a divine idea. We are representative of God, one of a kind, on earth right now, at this point in the world's history, for a reason. And the sooner we get to know what our blueprint is, the sooner we can get about doing that reason with confidence and clarity. Thank you, Seth. That was amazing. Any other questions or comments based on Seth's talk? And Brian, thank you so much for being with us today and letting Seth share your story and share a little bit about you. You sound amazing.
Thanks, Tammy. And Seth, I do want to recount the story as I remember it, but I think you're the one who laid out the ground rules that we were going to be friends, and there's no getting out of it. But it has been a huge blessing for me on my journey, and I couldn't be more grateful for the place you've held, Seth, for me, as mine has evolved. And I appreciate the invite. Tammy, I am more of the Eastern tradition, spiritual tradition, but to the corollary between what you're saying and from the light within, and what I like to explain it as the I am, the form voice, the observer, and truly that's what I believe that you were talking about, just in different words, in a different metaphor. So a blessing to be here and listen. I do believe we're all connected, and there's a reason to be here. Grateful I was. Thanks.
And we are too, Brian. You definitely have added to our conversation today, not just through Seth's story, but through what you just shared. I really, really appreciate that. And thank you for letting me use the word God and refer to it in that way. We each of us are, I believe, figuring out our own individual relationship with that power, and how we refer to it could be as varied as the languages that there are on the planet. And I just appreciate that you heard the meaning behind the words.
Good.
Any other comments or shares? Well,
What's
yeah,
coming
go
up for
ahead.
me, sorry, Tammy, what's coming
No.
up for me is it can be very difficult to radically accept yourself. And so, this is for anyone, what would you tell the person if there was just one thing like you would tell somebody to help them make the connection of how important it is to get to that place of radical acceptance? I'm curious, like, what would that be? What would you tell that person?
I think the first thing for me that came to mind when you said that is you're not alone. Number two would be, and this is the context of relationship and community. There is absolutely nothing you're going to say to me that's going to be so outside of this community that you're in that I'm going to walk away. I'm going to stay here regardless of what it takes. So you're not alone in this process. And I want you to know that whatever you share, I'm going to stay here.
Mm.
I'm not going to do the Southern thing of, if there's any Southerners on here, I apologize in advance. The infamous, "Oh, God love you," and then get in the car and, we'll drop off a casserole and that's going to be the end of it. So I just kind of tell them that piece. You're not alone. I'm going to stay. And I love you regardless of what you share with me.
Sounds like that was pretty much the contract you made with Brian.
Yeah, it's funny when he says that because in many ways, I think because relationships weren't common for me. Like as the adopted kid, after that meeting, as the adopted kid, I was like, yeah, he's going to find out what I'm all about. He's long gone.
Might get a casserole later.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the adopted kid is like just waiting for someone to leave. The key people in your life have left. You just wait for people to exit. So I think when I was probably laying that down, it was like, all right, like this is what you're doing. Like you're going to show up. Like you're going to stay with this. You're not going to wait for the exit. So in many things we talk about, it's kind of a mirror also.
I love that aspect about your community, not just yours, Seth, but all of ours, that it's just like Brian said, the way, Seth, you were talking about your relationship is equal to the way he talks about it. So it's not like one or the other of you was the giver and the other one was the receiver. You mutually gave, you mutually benefited. And that's what happens when we're with our people, no matter how few they are. We get that incredible validation. Thank you. Anybody else want to share before we wrap up? As always, Ray, it's good to see you. As always, it's been an amazing treat. Thank you everyone for showing today. Please feel free to reach out, email, whatever. You probably have somebody's contact information. You can find us anywhere. Again, thank you so much for showing up. And more importantly, thank you for being a purpose pursuer. And we'll see you all, hang on, June. We'll be back here, same Zoom link, the last Wednesday of June. So June 25th at noon Pacific. And anything that we can do to help you on your purpose journey, that's exactly why we are here. Love you all.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Seth. Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank
Tammi.
you. See y'all.
Hey, see you.